I thought I'd show you the case because this is something of a rarity. The Last Emperor is a classic from 1987, a winner of Oscars, back when that really meant something. However, an action movie, it is not. So I was surprised to discover they made a 3D version of it. So that was my first reaction, a befuddled, why? And then curiosity took over, and I found I was determined to see it. I paid for my curiosity. This was not a cheap Blu-ray to acquire. I ordered it from an Italian online charity using Google Translate to help. But it worked. Why Italy? Why was this only released as a limited edition in Italy several years ago? So far as I can tell, this was not a commercial endeavor, but one sponsored by an Italian energy company as part of its commitment to Italian culture, and as such created as part of a general celebration of the director, Bernardo Bertolucci, if I say that right. The Oscar was for Best Director for this movie and screenplay. He died a few years ago, but he was alive and present at the premiere of this version, and from what I've read, he fully endorsed it. I've read complaints about the quality of the transfer, even some going so far as to compare it to VHS. I wouldn't go that far. It's a slightly bright picture, but that's better for 3D than a dark one. However, I didn't really have a problem with it. I suspect the complaints come from the argument of what constitutes the ultimate way to experience this movie, and I would respond that no, this isn't the ultimate way to experience this movie. It is an alternative. And as an alternative, it is a valid experience. It is not broken. Although it is about as shallow of a 3D movie as you'll likely to find. It does have its moments. A lot of this old technology, with all of it, lots of metal casing, really does give you moments that pop out nicely, usually in close quarters. However, the shallowness is not always bad. Take this moment of the young emperor riding a bike in the Forbidden City. He pops out a little when he is close to us, but as he rides away, he blends into a two-dimensional picture. At first glance, it seemed like a missed opportunity. But I realize that long roads that stretch into the distance feel infinite. It feels like freedom. And this is a boy who's trapped behind these walls. He rides in circles every day of his life. There is no freedom in this forbidden city. I don't know if 3D here was an artistic choice, only that I feel that keeping the black background flat was a good fit for the narrative of that scene. It really brings in the feeling of being trapped, even though this forbidden city was very large. And trapped is a recurring theme in this movie. And surprisingly, the best 3D moments are the close-ups, which, for a movie that holds its actions in the emotions of the actors, that is a good choice to focus on. It is in the faces and the expressions that you experience this movie. Years ago, I came across a list of the most important movies ever made, and I decided I should watch everything on that list. That's how I first watched this. And that was a long time ago. And although I remember respecting the movie, I realized today its meaning was largely lost on younger me. Story-wise, it's a compelling film. Watching it, I felt it was almost intended to convey a message for the world 35 years after its making, like a time capsule. It tells the story of the last emperor of China. He became emperor as a child, and at least going by the information presented in this movie, was never more than a symbolic emperor. What struck me is how this story could play out as an allegory for so many of us, especially now that our technology has made us more isolated than ever. This man grew up surrounded by servants, believing himself to be an emperor, and taking that as a normal fact of life. At one moment he gets rudely kicked out from his childhood world, and although he doesn't seem to have too bad of a life on the outside, again, I'm not reading from any historical account, just what I see in the movie, he's unable to separate from his youth and makes a most tragic decision to become the emperor he imagines he should be. I feel the scenario plays out in a smaller fashion especially with so many single child households and small families. Yeah, every child at a certain point believes themselves to be the most important thing for as long as they're permitted to. But also how true for so many of us that we carry those impressions of a child's world and use that to make decisions in the adult world, sometimes to combat fears or to fulfill imaginary destinies. As the film closes, I realize that this movie is a coming-of-age story. It's about growing up. That childhood is a prison that takes adult arms to open the door to leave. There's a deep, even touching moment where the emperor is crushed by the consequences of his decisions he made somewhat in the past, and his jailer doesn't let him have it. He says something like, "You thought you were the greatest person, so now you're going to think that you're the very worst." Both are the unbalanced thoughts of a child. And although it's just a moment, I felt I was watching this man rescue him from being washed out back to sea. You may not be able to watch this in 3D, but in any format, even VHS, it is well worth the effort to seek out this movie and watch it, meditate on it, dig into it. I'm glad they made this edition. It served as a carrot to lead me to seek it out again. Though I had once watched this, I feel this time I have actually seen it. Now, a few final thoughts on the 3D of this film. There's so much gorgeous pageantry here, and that too is something that's very much lost in leadership nowadays. There was a time when leadership was expected to be an example of the best that a person could be and produce, and the goings on, the clothing, the art that surrounded leadership was meant to be something to inspire people to be greater and build greater. Now here, some of that cuts out very well, and some of it doesn't. Like here, these crowd scenes are frequently flat until they start focusing in on a particular aspect of it. Generally, when you're inside the places like here, with lots of the hard edges, that's going to be the more entertaining 3D that you'll find here. But every shot in this movie is beautiful, and when the 3D does pop something out, it's a nice touch to an already beautiful experience.